At one point when I worked in corporate, I had the perfect job on paper. I worked Monday through Thursday, Fridays off. I traveled a lot, um, all around the country to the Caribbean for 2 to 3 days at a time. Um, and I worked from home Monday through Thursday. Sounds perfect, but I hated the work that I was doing. I loved the company, hated the work I was doing. I could not stand my boss. She was a complete micromanager and one of those people that needed to have her hands in everything. And she just felt like she needed to be known as the boss. Like everybody needs to know that she was the boss, she was in charge. And it drove me crazy. And I was slowly losing my mind. So I decided to choose my sanity over convenience. Hi, I'm Michaela Pavone, your 49-year-old homegirl, here to share the real, the raw, and the relatable moments of life, all with a little style and entrepreneurship and encouragement mixed in. Today, it's just a little story time about the time that I chose my sanity over the convenience of a job that really drove me crazy. I was working at JetBlue, and like I said, I traveled a lot. I was an airports auditor, so I would create reports based on the job that the people working at the airport did, making sure they were following all of their um, rules and regulations and the steps that they needed to take to perform their job properly. I had to like stand there and audit them as they did their job to make sure they were doing everything properly, and then write a report about it. So tedious and annoying, and I hated the job. But again, I was grateful for that I had a job, grateful that I worked for an airline, and my family and I could travel for free. But it was a lot. And then on top of that, having a boss who just did not really seem like she cared about people that weren't in her circle. There were like 2 or 3 men at the job that on our team rather, that she took care of. They got to do whatever they wanted. However, the rest of us were treated like peasants. Um, but anyway, I digress. And I just, it was a difficult job for me, especially after having my second child. I dealt with a lot of postpartum anxiety, a little bit of postpartum depression. Um, went back to work after 4 months, and when I tell you my boss acted like she didn't care. She acted like I just took 4 months off for vacation, and I was right back to doing 3-day trips. And she had me literally on back to back to back 3-day trips. And before I came back, I asked her, I'm like, I have a small baby at home. I'm still trying to breastfeed. And being away for that long is one, not good for me with the anxiety that I'm having right now. And two, for the breastfeeding. It was just a lot on my feet all that time. Like it just, so I asked without giving me any explanation whatsoever. She just said no. Meanwhile, another guy on the team, if he didn't want to do a trip, he figured out a way to either get out of it or switch the trip, and she had no problems with it. But I just asked for less. I wasn't asking to do less work. I just asked for shorter trips, trips that weren't all the way to the West Coast, trips that I had to go to the Caribbean and be there for 3 days away from my family, and she just was not, she didn't hear me at all. She didn't care. So I took it to HR and I told HR about it, and they, were a little bit helpful in having her switch some of my trips around and do shorter trips. But that just made things so much more unbearable with her. Like, she was angry that I went to HR. She was angry that I went around her authority and did something else. And it was just too much. So I applied furiously for other positions, and obviously didn't get anything for the first. I was doing that job for like 5 years maybe. Um, and it took me a long time to find something else. And finally, a position opened up with the VP of the same department that I was in. Um, and I got an interview, and he was very clear. He's like, "This is not a job where you travel. This is not a job where you work from home. You know, you need to be in the office 9 to 5." And I'm like, listen, if this means that my time is more structured, that I know what I'm doing, where I am on a day to day, on a weekly basis, I'm here for it. Now, I was giving up a lot because my my daughter was in daycare, my son was in a school nearby. If anything happened, I could always go pick him up from school. I could pick my daughter up from daycare. If he was having a field trip and it happened to fall on a Friday, I could go on the field trip. If he had anything happening at school, I could always go to like the little shows or events or performances at school right after school. Like that was great that I had that flexibility. Um, and I could even, like, if he forgot something at home, I could just run back to the school and take it to him. And that flexibility was really comfortable for me, convenient for me, but I really decided I had to give that up in order to regain my sanity, because I was already, like I said, feeling the anxiety from postpartum after having my daughter. She cried a lot. I didn't know how to like please her or to get her to stop crying or whatever. So having that anxiety and then a little bit of depression from that, then dealing with this crazy boss, like I was like, you know what? Let me just do something else that's going to give me more sense of calm. And I did. I didn't get a raise. It was just kind of like a lateral move, but I was fine with it because my sanity was more important. So I took the new position, and this was in 2019, like May of 2019. I moved over to the new position. And when I tell you, night and day, having somebody that trusts you, having somebody that believes in your talent, knows your talent, and actually wants to push you forward to do something more because he sees how talented you are, like that was such a refreshing change for me, having been under this manager for over 5 years and now being directly under a vice president of the department who like really believed in you. Like that was a complete game changer for me. And my work got better and I felt more confident. And I was still dealing with a little bit of depression from the baby at this point, a little bit, because she was over a year, like a year and a half at this point. So things had gotten a tad bit better anxiety wise. But having that different position changed everything. And I went from a complete micromanager to somebody who trusted me, who knew my work and knew I would get my work done. At that point, I was like a reporting analyst, and he would just tell me what he wanted, and I would, create the reports. And I created my Monday and Tuesday reports for him every day. He had everything in hand when he needed it. It was it felt like so much more of a supportive environment when I worked, when I moved to that new position. And sometimes, the convenience of a position that drives you crazy, it's not worth the sacrifice of your sanity. So again, this was like May of 2019 when I moved into that new position. And then, what happened in the next year, 2020, was COVID. So by March of 2020, early March of 2020, everybody was working at home anyway. And by August, I ended up actually retiring from that position and leaving the company because they were offering packages and my businesses were going well. So it was a great time for me to leave. But yeah, I think had I stayed in that position, I don't know where I would be, because I had the freedom of creativity in my mind because I wasn't so stressed about work, stressed out by my boss, that I was able to be more creative. And that is when I started my clothing line. So that job started in May 2019, started my clothing line, or I designed my first hoodie in October of 2019. Like all this creativity just kind of started to come out once I wasn't under all of that stress. And then, you know, what happened in 2020 with COVID, and we had to work at home anyway. By March 2019, 2020 rather, we were working at home anyway. So I got my convenience back, even though we were all home together. But I think having my sanity back and not feeling so stressed and so crazy about that job, plus crazy about my what's going on at home with my baby, like it just, like I said, made me feel more creative. That creativity afforded me the ability to start my clothing brand and start getting more creative with my content, which affords me the life that we're living right now. So forever grateful that I had the wherewithal to say, you know what, the convenience is less important than my sanity. So let me give up that convenience of being able to work from home and having all my Fridays off and, you know, traveling all the time, which was great, but I just, I needed something more stable. And that stability led to the freedom of creativity. So I'm grateful I made that move. If you're in a place where you feel like your creativity is stifled, or you're just so stressed out that you can't think outside of the situation that you're in, just want to encourage you that it's okay to pivot. Like if you have the ability to, if you have, you know, other opportunities to help you do so, then definitely look into it. Don't try to stay in something just because you're comfortable, just because you're used to it, because sometimes on the other side of what's uncomfortable is the joy and the growth that you've always wanted. So just wanted to share that. That's all I have for today. See y'all next time.